Welcome to South Asian Environment Dialogue. All of you who say this program every Sunday, you know that this is a program where we talk about the range of issues on environment and climate change, and also the related developmental issues in South Asia. And South Asia, for various reasons, mainly the geopolitical reasons, often don't talk with each other, which is very important. And in this program, in this platform, we feel that we are providing this platform so that the experts across South Asia can talk among themselves and hopefully can find out some solutions somewhere down the line. This program is brought on by the Climate Channel Canada, Climate Television Channel Canada, along with the Plurals, an Indian platform, and also NoTV Bangla, a Bangladeshi YouTube channel, which is having more than 80,000 subscribers. Now, today, we are going to talk about an issue which is raging all over the world, more so in South Asia. We call it COVID tsunami. We titled today's program, COVID Tsunami. It's so unfortunate to see every morning in the newspaper that how millions are being affected, how thousands are being dying, people are being thrown into the river, people are being put into the river bank, dead, nobody taking care. Even after death, they're not getting the dignity. It's so painful that really we don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, next second. So today we are trying to find out where do we stand right now. Before I start the ball rolling and kind of start the whole discussion forward, very quickly I'm giving you the figure as of now available with me. India, definitely the elephant in the room, is having the last 7 days, India's daily number of affected individuals is 3.82 lakhs. That is about 0.4 million. So 0.4 million Indians are being affected with corona every day for last 7 days in average. So far, 2.5 crore people are being affected, and about 2,66,000, more than 2,66,000 already died from corona in India. When we go to Bangladesh, the 7-day average is around 1,500. And the good news is it's declining a bit. We'll be hearing from Dr. Murshida what's the current scenario. And so far, Bangladesh having almost 78,000 kind of affected, and 7,78,000 being affected, and 12,000 died. Pakistan, in the last 7 days, again declining a bit. Around 3,000 is the average last 7 days, more than Bangladesh. And so far in Pakistan, around 8,75,000 being affected with around 20,000 dead. Nepal is also a case where it's actually increasing like India. In the last 7 days, Nepal average per day number of affected is around 9,000. And so far 4.5 lakh people being affected, nearly 5,000 died. So just these are numbers, but when you just turn it into the families, that how many families have been impacted by this disease. And I don't know any family in India, at least in my surroundings, who are not being affected by COVID. Many of them lost their dear and near ones. So where do we really stand? Let me start with, before that, my job is to introduce the panel. It's a very, very eminent panel, and let me introduce that. My panel today is Dr. Kunal Sarkar. Dr. Sarkar is one of the country's foremost cardiac surgeon, a major voice of public health in India on corona, and also he's the vice chairman of the Medica Hospital Group. We have Professor Rajiv Dasgupta. Professor Dasgupta is a public health expert, a professor with Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi, India, and member of various committees, national committees on vaccination in India. We have Professor Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay. Professor Chattopadhyay is one of the foremost scientists and also the Vice Chancellor of Sister Nivedita University in Kolkata, India. Professor Chatterjee, welcome to the show. Professor Dasgupta and Dr. Sarkar, welcome to the show. We have Professor Dr. Saira Afzal. She is a public health is the Dean of Public Health and Preventive Medicine in the King Edward Medical University, Lahore, Pakistan, and also the member of Corona Advisory Committee of Government of Pakistan.
Thank you very much for a very kind introduction.
It's a pleasure to host you. Dr. Morsheda Chaudhary from Bangladesh. She's the Director, Health, Nutrition and Population Program of BRAC. And BRAC is one of the biggest non-government organizations in the world, not only Bangladesh. And she's also very closely linked with the Corona program in Bangladesh. Welcome, Dr. Chaudhary, to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Basu. Glad to be here.
Absolute pleasure. And we have Dr. Shomit Dixit, public health expert, Nepal, and Vice Chairperson, Center for Molecular Dynamics in Nepal. And I know that Dr. Dixit is another prominent voice, one of the major voices from Nepal in this sector. Welcome, Dr. Dixit, to the show.
Thank you, Jayant, and lovely to be connected with everyone.
Great. I think we'll be all jamming together for 1 hour or so. And we have Patralekha Chatterjee. Patralekha is a journalist, a very senior journalist, health journalist, contributing in many international publications across the world and been following this corona very closely. Welcome, Patralekha, to the show as well.
Thank you for having me on your show, Janta. Nice.
Great. So with that, absolute pleasure. So with that, very quickly, let's start with Professor Dasgupta first, then I'll come to Dr. Kunal Sharkar. Professor Dasgupta, you are part of various committees in Government of India. Where do we right now standing on corona in country? How bad is the situation?
Thank you once again, and good evening to all the viewers from New Delhi and India. South Asia unarguably is the epicenter now. And it's only within the last 24 hours that the Director General WHO has expressed his anxiety over the situation unfolding in South Asia, not just India, but in the neighborhood also. What's worrying is, and I'm sure we'll talk about it as we go along, is not just the cases and deaths in India, the Indian cases contributing at least half of the global cases and anything between 1/4 to 1/3 of the global deaths each day. But the emergence of the mutant form, the B1617 with 3 sublineages, which has been reported at least from 44 countries, all continents except South America. So the world is watching India not just because of the tsunami within, but the impacts of that tsunami that can potentially happen outside. And Absolutely. It's only a few hours ago that UK, in a reversal of sorts, has actually announced reducing the interval between the first and the second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine from 12 weeks to 8 weeks.
Oh.
To be able to close the immunity gap faster, apprehending that the fast-spreading strain can actually jeopardize their opening up plans. So
that's a very, very important piece of input, because we all know that India is actually did the other round. So we'll be discussing that. Fine.
So put shortly, the world is on its tenterhooks.
Absolutely. Dr. Sharkar, as a doctor, in the hospital, every day you are looking at the patients and the flow of patients. And also we all know that the infrastructure is being stressed like anything. We don't have enough beds. There's an issue of oxygen, people dying. In Goa yesterday, 75 patients died because of lack of oxygen. We saw how in the 5-star hospitals in Delhi, people dying without oxygen. In Kolkata also, the situation is quite tough. How you look at it as a doctor?
Well, Joyanto, I think, again, thanks for asking. I knew always that you were a very clever person. But I am really a bit overtaken by your gullible nature in the beginning, because you rattled off a lot of figures from India right now. And some people believe that the figures, the realm of science fiction or statistical fiction at this point of time. So for some of you who might have been following the corona literature, do read the piece in Economist before yesterday, where they did a brilliant statistical modeling of how they think the actual ground prevalence of the condition stands vis-a-vis the half-truths and the quarter-truths that the governments are forcing us to digest. And to cut a long story short, it says that Indian mortality, this is based on a statistical model. This is not based on investigative journalism counting the dead bodies in the footpaths of Delhi or Mumbai. So we are probably deaths by a factor of 5, very conservative. And if you are the BBC, you will believe that we are underreporting mortality by the factor of 20. So the truth lies somewhere between The Economist and the BBC. And if you look at the case prevalence numbers of the 4 lakh whatever, that is once again a lot of mumbo jumbo. Because if you have a test positivity rate which is far above 30%, then your prevalence numbers cannot be is not worth the salt it is written, right? So with the test positivity numbers of 30%, what it basically means that you are testing far too low. You are far too low and you have a very false sense of the reality. So, and that deficiency, that data deficiency, which I think, I shouldn't stick my neck out and say that, but I think the data deficiency is being characterized as a typical South Asian syndrome. And this data dishonesty or data deficiency is probably a South Asian syndrome. And I think all of us are, we prepare very spicy dishes, very delicious food. So I think we are putting our culinary skills on the statistical side in cooking up numbers as far as this. So please, if you are serious about following Corona, do not follow your government figures, look around. Now, what is the figure that matters as far as India is concerned at this point of time? There is only one number. I could munch Corona stats to you for half a day because I was not too bad in mathematics. But the problem is I've stopped looking at the figures because to us on the ground, there is only one figure which is important, is that whether the one sick person is finding that one precious hospital bed that he or she needs so badly.
Absolutely.
The state, in its collective irresponsibility, has failed its people, right? And Professor Dasgupta, congratulations to you for memorizing the variant numbers. But I tell you, so far, in scientific domain, there is absolutely lackadaisical data linking our variants to the clinical expression of disease. Absolutely, pathetically poor data. You claim to produce 4 lakh cases a day, and we still haven't come up with that convincing piece of evidence that will link the Punjab outbreak to the British variant, the Maharashtra variant to the double mutant. Because what are we so afraid of? We've done it. We've messed up the whole country. So both in data and INSACOG, I'm sure all of you in India know what INSACOG is. INSACOG is the body which is giving the genomic analysis responsibility.
Yes, absolutely.
And they are now banging their heads on the wall and saying that we did blame the government, we did warn the government way back in March. And for those of you who you could not but follow the Indian tragedy at this point of time, but the Indian tragedy, put in clinical medical terms, was like a little boil in the hand, which progressed to septicemia.
Okay. And we'll be coming to the shortcut. We're coming to this INSACOG thing. Please go ahead.
Just allow me two lines. So the question is, it was not just a genomic surveillance of the problem. It was also a clinical surveillance of the problem.
Absolutely.
For 1.5 months, we could see right in front of our eyes, trouble brewing in 3 districts in Maharashtra and, well, nothing doing. And just as an Indian, you should not get too depressed because there is one more country who is giving us company in terms of the impact of Corona on their lives and livelihood, in terms of per capita death and case prevalence. So we have been overtaken by one other country in the world in terms of its impact on Corona, and that is Peru. Peru is worse off than India, and I think Mr. Dixit will tell us that Nepal is giving us a close competition at this point of time.
Absolutely.
When translated. So India's place of prominence in this corona fiasco seems to be under threat. You carry on.
Okay, great. Let's go to Dr. Dixit. Dr. Dixit, because of the fact, I think, along with India, within South Asia, Nepal is another country which is on the rise. Yeah. How do you explain the situation in Nepal?
Yes, absolutely. I failed to catch the name of the previous speaker, Dr.
Kunal.
Dr. Kunal, yes. No, absolutely. No, you are right. In fact, we have overtaken you in one thing, which is the positivity rate. Ours is at 44%. So obviously we're testing less. So like, I agree with you. The numbers, mean very little because we do realize that the situation is pretty bad. Now, but again, if we were to accept some of the numbers that we are getting from the government of Nepal, looks like the last 7 days moving average. So if you look at the last 2 weeks moving average, the new case numbers are actually slowing down for Nepal. So between 8,000 and 9,000 has been the number for at least for the last 1 week. The numbers have not increased, and the recovery, because Nepal government treats 10th day as the recovery date. The Nepal government, the rules are once you're tested positive, after 10 days, after 3 days of no fever, you are considered recovered. So that between 10 and let's say 14 days. That is
recovery by default. So it's recovery by default.
Recovery, yeah, 10 days plus 3 days of no fever. That means you don't have to test.
According to how credible is the Nepal official data on corona?
No, I mean, it's like this. I mean, same. I think a lot of this is very similar to India. I mean, I think we follow India in everything. So, even the data, we know. I mean, the government, we only do like around between 18 and 20,000 tests per day. That's for the entire country of 30 million. So you can imagine. So, per 100,000 people, that's a very low number, right? So that's
absolutely,
like Dr. Kunal said, I mean, our number, I mean, when you have a positivity rate of 44%, it was closest to 50 until a few days ago. So it's kind of come down. So anyways, yeah, the numbers, I mean, we do believe the numbers to some extent because it's from the government. The government collates all the numbers and, we get those numbers.
Okay, but so you have to go by the government numbers till other numbers come up.
So we have no choice.
So great. I think Nepal situation is, as Dr. Sharkar was pointing out, along with India being on the rise a bit. But there are good stories in Pakistan and Bangladesh. Let's hear first Bangladesh, and then I'll go to Pakistan. What is the situation, Professor Chaudhary, Dr. Chaudhary, in Bangladesh?
If I start from the very beginning, when first case was identified back in March 8 in 2020, after that we observed first wave, if we call it first wave, and that was from June, July, and August. At that time, the total positivity rate was around 20%. After that, it gradually came down, and in January and February, it was less than 5%. And again, in April, March, it started to shoot up, and it went to again more than 20%. And again, it is coming down now. Now it's 11%. So there are certain factors that people experts are analyzing that what are the factors that are causing these two waves that we observe. And one thing is that Bangladesh is very densely populated. And if I talk about Dhaka, the capital city, that is the most densely populated in the world. So the total population is around 10 million, and the slum dwellers is more than 1.1 million. So that means if government has tried many strategies like putting lockdown, zonal lockdown, then mask use mandatory, and with reinforcement with law. So many things. But the thing is that doesn't changing the people's behavior. So whenever there is people here heard that there is a lockdown coming up, people moves Dhaka city altogether. And we found that it's around in last time when just before the first wave, around 10 million people left Dhaka city at a time. So it means that huge congregation in the transport hubs. So that also creates not only transmission, but also spreading the infection from Dhaka
Absolutely.
to the whole country.
That's extremely interesting because the lockdown actually triggered the infection, the contagion to be spread all around the country. That's extremely interesting.
Again, the experts are now afraid that now we are observing our Eid holidays and people left Dhaka, though within lockdown there was no transport, but people somehow left Dhaka and without any public vehicles. So that means they use like microbuses, trucks, and small vehicles, and that even like was more riskier than everyone stopped.
Okay.
So we don't know. We are worried.
Absolutely, Dr. Chaudhary, the problem in South Asia is somehow we manage everything by somehow. The politicians manage everything by somehow. We, the citizen, manage everything by somehow. So the somehow syndrome is actually the problematic syndrome in South Asia. Let's hear the Pakistan version. What's the Pakistani situation? Pakistan situation, Professor Dr.
Okay,
Afzal.
good evening from Lahore, Pakistan. There is a sharp decline in the cases of coronavirus, as we know that we are in the third wave. After the first and second wave, we were witnessing the most of the cases in the third wave, they were severe, and they were due to the mutations, and these mutations are mainly due to the UK variant. As an epidemiologist, I believe in data. And without numbers, I would not say anything because all the evidence is coming either from the clinics, through the sentinel surveillance, or through the on-site surveillance, or through the mutation surveillance. All is showing that Pakistan has been performing well as far as the decline in the number of cases is concerned. In Lahore, we have about 11 million population. And as Dr. Marcida Chaudhary was saying, about Eid holidays, we have lockdown here, and we also have the Eid holidays, but these Eid holidays have not caused the massive transport because all these roads from the city of Lahore has been closed, and people are not allowed to have any transport. Even the public and private transport, they have been closed down by the government by a very strict action. All the markets were closed at 6 p.m. sharp. So we have seen that in the hospitals, the decline is about 69.8%. So I am talking about a 69.8% decline in ICU, that is intensive care unit.
And you feel Professor Afzal, the figures that being given by the government are credible figures, and you can actually depend on that.
Yeah, and whenever as an epidemiologist, whenever I talk about the figures, I will not only talk about the figures from the clinics, but also from different surveillance like laboratories, from the testing, from HDUs, high dependency units, intensive care units, from positivity rates, etc. And all those figures, they coincide. It means that we can rely on that valid data. As far as WHO has listed Pakistan as having 0.8 million cases, 873,000. In Punjab, we have about 324,000 cases. However, there is a decline in 24 hours, about 65% in new deaths. There are about...
what is the current situation? I think currently you are declining a bit.
Yeah, we have seen 65% decline in new deaths in 24 hours. And similarly, about there is a 82% decline.
Hope the trend will continue. Because we are having so many waves.
We will have about 2,200 cases that have been declined over 3 weeks. So it is a constant phenomena that have been seen. In positivity again, it has been decreased about 9.5%.
Just a quick question. If the decline is so strong, how come the lockdown is still being happening in Pakistan? How you correlate those two?
I will give the credit to the lockdown. Exactly.
It's due to lockdown.
They have been locked down, and that is the credit that has to be given to the lockdown.
So the lockdown actually has impacted the decline that you were saying. Okay, fine. Let's go to Professor Chattopadhyay. Professor Chattopadhyay, we are never ever the variants and the genomic sequences, the T487T and all those strange figures have been talked in public domain in such a wide scale before. I think only in your laboratory you tended to talk about those. Now how you see this? Dr. Sharkar made a very clear submission that this whole analysis, that the genomic analysis is not adequate or actually not the way it should have been done. How you say this? You are being on mute. You are on mute, Professor Chatterjee. You need to unmute yourself. Yes, please go ahead.
Good evening to everybody. Now, I'm reacting to Dr. Sarkar because, the genomic sequence data is going to be very important for looking at the success rate, actually. While we're talking about vaccination in one hand and the success rate in the other hand, the infectivity in one hand and the immune reaction on the other hand. Now, all these things are right now been done by all the genomic sequences so far available, but they are very small actually. I can tell you that whatever been actually. Now, the virus which causes the COVID-19, they are actually having not mutant. There are 6 strains which are there. And out of these 6 strains, despite its mutation, the virus shows little variability. And that is actually one of the good news with respect to the vaccination procedure. That when you are developing the vaccine, the response to these new strains are very important. But now if we look at the different type of mutations. Now, why the mutations? The RNA viruses always have the mutation. It's true for the flu viruses. It's true for everything. And based on these mutations, we have to also react on it. Now, the numbers in these mutations actually they denote certain things. That when we identify the mutations, immediately some sort of computer modeling could be done. Because one of the best thing what has been done, the cryo-electronic micrograph of the S protein in relation with the ACE2 receptor, that cryo-electron micrograph actually been published in May 2020. So based on that, every scientist is now working on it. So if you have a mutation, how that area is going to change and whether that mutation is going to make the interaction more stable or less affinity, or what's going to happen. So from that, actually the numbers are becoming very important. Let me tell you the reactions, what I generally used to find out, that when we are started with the different types of mutations already in our surroundings, and one of the most important things is multiple variants of the virus, which are circulating globally. And which in general, the CDC, the mean interjection group, they classified the variants and monitored them. They call variant of interest, this VOI term they are utilizing at the very beginning from September 2020. Then they identified variant of concern, VOC. So VOI, VOC, and variant of high consequence, that is a VOHC. So that's how I can tell you that variance plays very important role. And identification by the genomic sequencing, get an idea about these variants are very, very important. Now, the first variant which is identified...
Just to interrupt you, as you mentioned about the variants of concern, as of now in India, I understand there are 2 variants of concern. One is the UK variant and also the we call double mutant variant. These 2 are the variants of concern as of now, isn't it?
No. There are 4 variants are actually there. One is actually the South African variant, which actually was
very small samples
have been very small samples, and that's in the southern part of the country. And when we are talking about this right now, though, everybody now started talking about, we should not say UK, we should not say this is South Africa, Brazil. In that way, we should not say. It is a sequence which is getting more important. And recently, the triple mutant, which is coming up with a deletion, it is dangerous.
That's the Bengal mutant you're talking about.
Because it was found the affinity for ACE2 receptor because of the mutation is much stronger. And because of that, it can actually making it's more infection, its replication is much higher, and so it can go down. So these two variants are very important.
But the double mutant is the dominant variety as of now.
Yes, the double mutant, which is actually what we call it as a P6.
And it's being kind of, WHO said that almost 44 countries, this double mutant has now spread.
This, so there are two mutations at the 452 region and the 484 region. And these are actually spotted as the fast spreading variants. And it's been done and studied very well in California. And they actually looking at the computer studies that the binding power of the virus spike proteins and the human cells are very high. And that makes it more transmittable. And
Professor Chatterjee, we'll be discussing other factors on the variants as well. But let first go to Patralekha. Patralekha, as a journalist, when you look at this as topics like Corona, issue like Corona, it's all pervading, is affecting your lives, it's affecting your economy, affecting everything under the sun. And when you look at the response of the government of India in particular, how you look at it, few months back, India was seen as the country saving the world. Now, India is seen as the country, as Professor Dasgupta pointing out, which can actually impact the whole world. It's a complete 360-degree turnaround. So, Patralekha, how you look at the whole thing?
Thank you, Joyanta, for having me. I don't think, frankly, India was seen by the world as saving the world. I think it was, this perception was, it's limited to, I think, specifically the political leadership in power at the moment. I doubt very much if the, firstly, as I've always said that, and you don't have to be a scientist or a mathematical modeler to know this basic thing, that even as an individual or as a household, when you have a crisis, you do the worst case scenario planning, not just the best case scenario planning. So I'm actually astounded. I've read the parliamentary committee reports, various warnings, including, by various people, and I'm sitting in Delhi, the capital of India. There have been, why do you assume that we will have a second wave, but it'll just go very well? And, it'll just taper down. I'm astounded, even not being a scientist. What is the basis of this assumption?
Our health minister actually said that we own over the corona. He actually said it publicly, our health minister.
Right from, that's the thing. As a journalist, if I could say something on the data, it is true that as journalists, we are having huge, and I think this data, lack of data transparency, data dishonesty, or whatever you choose to call it, it's actually, it's one of the really critical issues in the short term, medium term, and in the long term, because this goes way beyond politician A or politician B or regime A or regime B. Our Indian data, if it's seen as junk, that has very, very long-term, implications, and not just for the public health perspective from every way. And I find as journalists, we are really, your hands are tied because you have to go by some data. Some of my younger colleagues are going from crematorium to crematorium, counting bodies. That's one way. But one of the things I wanted to flag is that, in Gujarat, you would have heard of it. Gujarati regional media, sections of the Gujarati regional media have found very interesting ways of actually pinning down what the problem is. Divya Bhaskar, I'd like to mention specifically, where they've actually, it's very interesting. One thing Gujarat gets right is in normal times is their death registration. And my personal theory is because it's an affluent state and because you need death registration for death certificates. Without death certificates, you cannot access financial thing. So their death registration in normal times is actually way above the national average, which is about 93% or something. So what the Divya Bhaskar has done in the last 3 years, they've been, looking at what is the official death, and then suddenly they're finding that this year it's just, the death registration and what they're saying is completely at variance. And I like that approach because, since the government is not telling you anything, you have to do these ways of, getting the data. So I think data is very central to what is happening. And yes, the helplessness, and I would like to say it's the complete mixed messaging, and also not just mixed messaging, it's almost like a complete indifference to what messaging, because it's the health ministry tells you something, it's almost like a template, do social distancing, do this.
As you mentioned, it's just amazing to see that the high courts and Supreme Courts are running the day-to-day administration about health in the country right now. Where is our government? I really don't understand where is the government is right now. The court is maintaining the logistics, where the oxygen will go, where the medicines will go. The courts are deciding. Where is the government?
I'd like to flag one thing, because now the virus is moving into the rural hinterland. Now, you see, very cynically speaking, it's not the first time that people have died due to access of timely medical care. The poor, this has been happening to the poor for decades. It's just that this time, during the second wave, middle-class people like us got hit. And they've got access to, hi-fi, network, Twitter. So they've been going and, lobbying. And this citizen solidarity or solidarity Twitter, as I say, this is actually wonderful, but it's also a glaring indictment of the government, because you don't go to Twitter and desperately, cry for oxygen or an ICU bed or ventilator if you had any faith in the system, so to speak. So at least in Delhi and what I've been seeing, it's improving a little bit, but that's what it is. It's a system. It's a,
System is failing us. System is failing us. Professor Dasgupta, very interesting. I was just thinking when Potulega was talking, the first wave was seen as the wave where the people actually brought the virus from other countries, mainly the affluent people who usually stay outside, they brought the virus home. The second wave has hit the middle class hard, and that's why there's so much reaction. And the third wave, I am afraid, is going to hit the rural belt of India, and I am also afraid that will not create much of a noise because it's away from our eyes. So is it that the classification of corona, Professor Dasgupta?
No, I didn't quite get the import of what you're suggesting.
What I'm saying, the first wave, if you look at the first wave, normally the people coming from outside other countries normally brought it. That kind of triggered the whole process. And the second wave is more of a middle class, urban middle class being affected. But as Potulega pointing out, other doctors pointing out, it was spreading into the rural areas. So how do you look at it?
Well, slightly yes and no. And in one sense, it's been a continuum. In the first wave, the very first wave cases were among Wuhan returnees, which were clearly coming from China. The second lot was, of course, from all across the world, which had a relatively high incidence at that time. But beyond the first few months, it was community transmission, which the government of India never put on record. Till now, it is cluster of cases, which is, well, enigma at best. But the second wave is, and this links to what Professor Chaudhary, Professor Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay was explaining. The second wave really starts with two, foci. The UK variant again imported, mind you, it's again imported to Punjab, and not just Punjab. It is limited, at least initially, to the 6 or 7 districts of the Doaba region, which has at least 60 to 70% of families with a relative in UK and / Canada. And that's where the initial Punjab focus is. The PGI Chandigarh was identifying the genomic variant, and of course they were asking for more data. Similarly, it is Maharashtra southeastern part, the Vidarbha region, where the B1617 starts, sort of engulfs Maharashtra, and then it's a multiple mutant spreading all across the country. But now what's clearly happening is that with the lockdown restrictions in the more urbanized areas, it is moving into
rural belt.
I mean, it is spreading very fast in rural areas, and what's happening in rural areas, we can talk for a couple of minutes, but I'll limit myself at this.
Okay. I'll be coming back to you on this vaccination part, but before that, Dr. Sarkar. Dr. Sarkar, let's talk about vaccines. When we are talking about countering this corona, I think the long-term response is the vaccine. But you look at the vaccination program of Government of India. India is seen to be the country producing maximum amount of vaccines in the world. And at one point of time, we were kind of sending vaccines. We are doing vaccine diplomacy all over the world. And now we are in acute shortage. People who had their first dose can't have the second dose. And now we are expanding the Covishield from 4 weeks to 6 to 8 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, 6 to 8, and now 12 to 16 weeks. Dr. Dasgupta, Professor Dasgupta just said that UK actually turned it around from 12 weeks to 8 weeks. Professor Dasgupta, from 12 to 8 weeks now. So, Dr. Sarkar, how do you see this vaccine program of the government of India? Dr. Kunal Sarkar.
I'll just give me half a minute before we come to the vaccines. I want to make 3 observations. One is, I think all Indian microbiologists and virologists like Professor Chattopadhyay and everybody deserves a medal for valor, because they are sticking out their necks and making clinical correlation on genomics when 0.05 to 0.5% of all Indian samples undergo genomic analysis, right? So this really takes the bravery for statistical bravery, because when you do a genomic analysis of 0.05 to 0.5% of all samples, and we kind of start making, clinical correlations, you need to be not only a very clever, you need to be a very brave man to be doing that. The second point is about rural India. About rural India, you see what has happened is Indian democracy has come into its own, because thanks to the Election Commission, they have courier delivered the virus all across the districts, especially as far as Eastern India is concerned. In those depths and nooks and corners of districts, especially Uttar Pradesh because of panchayat elections, and West Bengal because of the monstrosity of a 2.5 month long election process, what the virus couldn't do. I think the observers of the Election Commission were taking aliquots of virus in their pockets, and they've done it this time around, right? Now, coming to your other observation is, let's give us a sense of statistics. I think those of you who are academians and especially journalists, please carry at the back of your head what is called a sense of statistics. What is the daily mortality rate of India? The daily mortality rate of India is about 30,000 people in a population of 1.3 to 1.4 billion. Do you, in all seriousness, believe that 3,000 or 2,500 extra deaths in India will add or contribute to any incremental mortality? No. In the first lockdown, if anything, the statistics were so skewed. If you did your numbers, you would realize that India actually saved lives, because in India, the daily death from road traffic accidents is more than 5,000. Look at Kolkata. Kolkata is claiming that an incremental 30 people are dying because of corona. Now that's a joke. If 30 people died, you think 4 crematoriums in the city will be clogged up with dead bodies, right? So there is a limit to which, we can be selectively naive as far as our sense of statistics is concerned. Now coming to vaccination. To cut a long story short, it is like reciting Hamlet, So it is a real Shakespearean tragedy. The basic thing was that, you see, India's preventive health program so far has been led by 2 cardiologists. It has been led by a biomedical person, and now somehow the flavor of the month are all pediatricians. So when 15 out of 20 leading epidemiologists of the world are Indians, not one has found favor with New Delhi. Even I think Mr. Dasgupta and Dr. Chattopadhyay, they're all left out, right? So somehow Indian hegemony is very allergic to domain competence. You have to be outside the domain. You want to sing a classical song, get a rapper to do it for you, and try to sing out of tune, they'll say, the more the merrier. So what happened was, when the plumber was acting as the electrician, what they ended up doing was, they did vaccine ordering by approximation. We had a 60 crore target in the first lot. We ordered about 20 crores, and we thought that 40 crores will be delivered because of the Chalta Hai somehow syndrome. And that was made possible because EU and USA was not lifting up their stocks. So once Kamala Harris, who is pictured as our own Idli Dosa, came into the White House, and she said, no, I want to lift up all the vaccines I have paid for, the cookie crumbles, right? Now you realize you just can't pick up the phone and give that guy a dhamki and say, hey, I ordered 20. So what the hell, you come and give me 120. That did not work anymore. And then because, certain people in India, I forget what their names are, They suffer from a mild syndrome of megalomania. They went on distributing vaccines all over the world, 7.5 crores. So by the way, 7.5 crores is a very good number. It is exactly the population of the 3 principal Indian cities added together, right? So when you look at the number of vaccines, and my apologies to our friend from Bangladesh, Professor Chaudhary, because not only have we got ourselves in mess, we've got her in a mess as well.
Yes. Yes.
We've given a whole lot of people first doses and haven't got a clue where the second doses are coming from. So next time I'm going for a trip to Dhaka to chat with my friends. I think some of them will be hitting me with rotten eggs, and I think I deserve that. I think I deserve that at this point of time. So, from megalomania, it has taken us about 1.5 months. Longer in Indian history, it usually takes, like in Nehru and all, it took about 2 decades. But this gentleman took about 1.5 months to step down from megalomania. And now he's looked at the numbers. And by the way, don't trust the numbers that were given out yesterday by the health ministry. Because I think the current vaccination numbers are probably looks like Lewis Carroll from Alice in Wonderland. Because there is no way India today, your entire kitty available to you cannot be more than 4 crores, at best 4.5 crores. And some guy is going on saying that we have 6 crore vaccine available. We do not have 6 crore vaccine available. Okay. So if you make that adjustment, I know you are allergic to statistics, but do bear out the numbers, because even as a journalist, you must be aware of the truth. I know you are allergic to truth, but have the patience, because all the numbers that were given out yesterday make a pre-Christmas discount of 25%, right? And the reality will be somewhere around there. God bless us if we hit around 8 crore vaccine supply per month. If we hit 8 crore vaccine supply per month, somewhere near about the end of the year, we will get the adult target vaccine.
Okay. I'll be coming back because there are a few very important points you raised. But before I go to Professor Dasgupta for a reality check at the national level, because you raised about Bangladesh and other countries, let's see how the situation in other countries. What is the situation in Bangladesh about the vaccination right now? You are not getting the second dose from us. What you are doing? Dr. Chaudhary?
So of course we have some plan. So I must thank my government, because the vaccine drive was started like back in January, and our Prime Minister is personally leading this vaccine drive. And according to government plan, 80% of our population should be vaccinated. But in first phase, we have planned to vaccinate 20% of the population. So and that needed like 39.5 million people to vaccinate. So how we are going to manage it? So the major source was like Serum Institute of India, which was supposed to provide us 3 crores or 30 million doses. And from COVAX facilities, we are supposed to get another 60 million doses. But what is the reality? In reality, we have gotten so far 10.2 million doses from Serum Institute and none from COVAX. So till to date, 7.2 million people have been registered for vaccination. That means we need at least 14.4 million doses to complete these 14 to these registered people, and until we source another alternate source. So this means we are in shortage of 4.2 million doses. But the good news is that government has started like side by side the other countries, especially with Russia, and has an agreement to produce, manufacture locally a Sputnik V vaccine. So that's going to be like solve many of the problems when we start. And the second thing is we have also an agreement like our drug regulator authority has issued approved an emergency use of China Sinopharm.
Are you getting anything from the Oxford? Are you getting anything from the UK?
5.5 million doses from China. So that means, and at the same time, government also is in dialogue with US and India to get like AstraZeneca and also to get more like Chinese.
No, Dr. Chaudhary, one question here. What about the second dose of the people who got vaccines from India, as Dr. Sarkar was pointing out? Covishield is AstraZeneca, so you can get from UK as well. So what's the situation out there? Covaxin is completely Indian vaccine, so you need to have it from India. There's no other way. So how you go about completing those people?
Yeah, so government, there is a technical committee of government, and they are like deciding on that whether they will go for like those who have completed, then it's fine. But those who doesn't complete the like have the first dose and is waiting for the second dose, and we will be running short of vaccine like soon. And then what is going to be done if we don't get the AstraZeneca vaccine? Then the technical committee will decide then whether we will go for another alternate source, like a combination source. So it's not decided yet, but the technical committee is evaluating all the
possibilities.
Like technical reports. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Let's quickly know from Pakistan. What's the vaccination situation in Pakistan?
Thank you very much. But first, I will comment on your very important sentence that you have said that this is not a wave, it is a tsunami. So after first wave, second wave, third wave, we are expecting that more waves are going to be here if our vaccination drive is not very strong. And the mobility, that is again very important. We have seen after the first wave that it is not mutations from Pakistan, it is from other countries that has affected us. Similarly, in third wave, it is again the variants coming from the other countries that has affected us. So we are expecting that more and more mutations would be here. And the vaccine, mark my words, it has to be changed with the mutations. When there would be a new variant, all those vaccines that are available till date, their efficacy would be decreased, and you have to develop new vaccines as a new variant is coming in. So your next question is about vaccination. As you know, the people of Pakistan, I would say they have little difficulty in getting vaccination because they think still, especially in the rural areas, that it is a hoax. It is created by the government. They want to vaccinate us. They have not seen all those corona cases and all those dilemma or the seriousness of this situation in most of our rural areas, as we have 65% population in the rural areas, and luckily it has not spread to the rural areas. So it is very difficult to convince the people about the vaccination. At this time, we have about 3.8 million people who have been vaccinated. There are 5 vaccines that are available in Pakistan, and 2 are under trial process. There are certain vaccines that have been developed locally. However, we are much convinced that there is a Sputnik that has 92% efficacy from Russia. We have Sinopharm. I also got the shot from the Sinopharm. It has about 86% efficacy, and it is a killed vaccine, a very safe vaccine. Similarly, we have Sinovac. Again, we have about 67% efficacy. We have AstraZeneca, Oxford, that is 62% efficacy. And we have many other vaccines that are in trial. For example, RBD dimer, it is in trials in Pakistan. However, the most important question here is how to vaccinate our people who are
the vaccine hesitancy. How to counter the vaccine hesitancy. Okay, and that's a problem in the rural areas across South Asia. Let's see Nepal's view. What's the vaccination situation in Nepal? Because you are also in the problem zone in Nepal.
Actually, no, I mean, when Dr. Kunal mentioned Bangladesh, I think you should not come to Nepal for the time being either. I think we have, I mean, about, I don't know, about 400,000 families waiting for Indian people to come and so that we can ask them questions about the vaccine we're supposed to get. But I mean, jokes apart, Indian government was very, it was very thanks to the Indian government, we got 1 million doses, which was utilized on the frontliners and some of the over 65s. Okay. But the problem was we paid for the another 1 million we had already paid for, which due to various factors, including Serum Institute and fire apparently, and also the Indian situation, we have not got so far, the 1 million dose that we need. Now, technically, I think our government was aiming for 5 million dosage overall from Serum Institute itself. So that amount that once vaccinated would be a good start. But then since the Serum Institute hasn't come, and also another 6 million from the COVAX, so the mechanism that hasn't come. Likelihood it won't come for a while.
You're not going to get it now. We are not getting it, so how can you get it?
Yeah, exactly, and then so because of that, so our government approached China also, because China is our good neighbor also. So we did get 400,000 dosage recently, which was used already. In fact, tomorrow we get the campaign started for the second dose of the Chinese vaccine for 400,000 people. And from what I've heard from the health ministry, that has yet to be verified, another 4 million dosage of Sinopharm, the Beijing, the BIBP, Vericel will be coming to Nepal soon. So, but then our ministry is approaching Sputnik also. So basically, all we have done so far is we have vaccinated about 200, just over 2 million Nepalis with the first dose, and about 360,000 Nepalis with the second dose. So we're at 4% population that is actually received one dose.
Lot of work still to be done. Not good. Great. I'll be coming, Patranaga, but let's go to Professor Chatterjee. Professor Chatterjee, you have to unmute yourself. And the question is that Professor Dasgupta raised a point at the very first kind of mention of him, that when India pushed the goalpost farther from 6 to 8 weeks to 12 to 16 weeks, and UK actually did it the other way around, they preponed it by another 4 weeks rather. So how do you see that as a scientist? People are having questions that somebody takes the Covishield after 4 weeks, somebody after 6 weeks, somebody 8 weeks, and now somebody will be after 12 weeks, somebody after 16 weeks. Are all these efficacies would be same, or people are taken for a ride? Professor Chatterjee.
I can tell you with our own experience. Say, for example, I am looking with a certain number of people who got their Covishield and first dose, second dose, and certain number of people who have got Covishield first dose, but not the second dose. Sure. And second dose is already 50 days gone. They have not yet received the second dose yet. So, and when this rapid antigen test has been done in both the cases, it was so diverse in the response. So it is very difficult right now also to say that yes, after 48 days or after 52 days or after these days, you cannot. It is all the prediction from the what we expect normally. And from there, it is pretty sure that when we look at this Covaxin, which is a total vaccine, which is actually a virulent one against the total virus, there you cannot go beyond the 42 weeks for the next dose so that you can boost up your system. And then in case of the Covishield, which is of a different type, where we can actually expecting the expression of that particular antibody in the system, it looks like that the antibody comes after, in general, from all different sources. It started to come after 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, we started to get this antibody data positive. And then if we could have after this 3 weeks, say for example, now it will go down. So around 6 weeks, it starts going down. So it's always better that if that's how actually the days actually came out, that this should be the number of days which we consider. But what we could find that even this booster doses, when we're looking at, the booster doses could be given in an extended fashion. And that extended fashion, you can go up to 12 weeks, but I really could not get the point that 12 to 18 weeks. So when I asked my friends from this vaccination system who are there, they said, no, we are thinking about the cell-mediated immunity is already there. Memory cells are being built up, so people can still resist. But when you are talking about that, they can also actually have the second infection. They said the next infection is going to give them, it will be a mild, but it will give them a booster dose. So this is a way they are reacting. But I don't think that shifting it to this longer time period is a good decision, at least based on whatever data is available right now. So I don't think it should be 12 weeks. That's what we could get it. 6 weeks onwards, we could see the starting of the decline. So we hope that before 12 weeks, it should be given actually. It should not go beyond 12 weeks.
Okay. Yes, not go beyond 12 weeks. But one pointed is that Professor Dasgupta mentioned that UK is actually preponing. It's a very interesting theory that they really don't want to people exposed long time with double vaccination or the completion of the vaccination. When you are putting 16 weeks, you mean that for 4 months or 16 weeks, the person will be moving around with one dose and will actually be exposed to more danger. So the UK logic, as I understand from Professor Dasgupta's point, is to minimize that.
And Indian logic is there. Even if he has got the second infection, that will act as a booster dose.
Okay, so natural vaccination. That's very interesting. That's very interesting.
And you can see a lot of people who are in this vaccine board, who are actually said that, no, it's okay. The second one is going to help them to get the booster.
No, that is why we had this huge second wave, you see.
We perhaps will have a third wave as well. Yeah. I'll be coming, but let Patrulekha. No, what's in? We have around 10 minutes time. We have expanded the program from 1 hour to 1 hour 15 minutes. Patrulekha, according to you, where is there any light in the pipeline? Where you see taking all this kind of fallibilities of the government, everything, considering everything, Patrulekha as a journalist. Who is looking at this issue for a long time, how you see the whole thing rolling out for another 6 months or 1 year time? Patrulekha.
Sorry, I don't have a crystal ball. I think it's difficult to even predict more. 2 weeks ahead, 6 months, definitely not. And as a journalist who is, watching, one thing I wanted to flag, mostly the discussion has been on vaccine supply, but we haven't actually talked about vaccine equity within the country, and not just in the quantum of doses. And even living in, being based in Delhi, the national capital, what is extremely evident is that, for instance, is open up to 18 to 44. Now, what is typically happening is that, I'm just astounded, that the whole strategy hinges on this CoWIN portal, which I've been talking to my domestic helpers and people, none of them have been able to. It's not just the shortage of vaccines, it's also the inability to, negotiate the portal. And if people in the big cities, in metropolitan cities, even middle-class people can't do it without some assistance, in the urban slums, they definitely have not been able to do it. Rural areas, you forget it. People don't, I mean, you just have to look at some basic statistics of smartphones and, you know, access to the net and stuff like that. So I'm just astounded that, you know, how are we going to rein in the virus, even if we get the supplies, if it is going to be through this portal. So that's one thing, you know, that I think this has to be addressed. The second thing, you said light at the end of the tunnel. I think it's just, as they say, Ram Bharose or DIY. I think the one lessoning is that, you know, that you cannot depend on anyone. I mean, middle class people, we do our own water.
You have been said to be Atmanirbhar. You have been said to be Atmanirbhar.
In a very dark, ghoulish manner. I mean, middle class people in India are used to anyway doing their own electricity, their own water. You know, we have everything, security. So now even your everything in terms of your health, you have to do it yourself. So I think, I mean, resilience to it. I mean, I wish we didn't have to learn it because, you know, where I live, apartment block today, one more death. Every day there's a drip of death. So, I mean, this is a very, very hard learning. And I think the predominant mood is right now anger and helplessness, you know, both parallel emotions. And I think I really don't know, you know, what is the 6 month ahead, but I certainly think the vaccine equity issue should be really stressed, because if we just leave, otherwise just rich people, those who are tech savvy are going to get the vaccines, even when it is available. That is not going to deal with the virus. I think equity is a very, very big issue.
Dr. Dasgupta, I'll be asking you about what you expect, but before that, as because Patruleka flagged up this point of vaccine equity, a WHO expert was telling me that government hardly discussed the issue of vaccine distribution with the people who did the polio and other things so successfully. I know that you were associated with the polio so strongly. When I understand that polio is from 0 to 5, not for the entire adult population, not for the adult population per se, but there's a structure. All these co-wins, all these apps which crash at the drop of the hat, how do you expect the people to utilize that? So, Dr. Dasgupta, your very quick response on that, and also just a one-word answer. I know that you can't answer in details, that this UK decision to prepone from 12 to 8 weeks, is this going to change again Government of India's decision? What do you think about that? Dr. Dasgupta.
Well, to answer the first question, you have also been very closely associated at the grassroots level with the polio eradication program.
That I know, absolutely.
Immunization component. I think one hallmark of the polio program has been these center state districts and the frontline synergy. It wasn't easy. It went through contestations, yet there was a dialogue, yet there was an openness. All programs grow brick by brick, but then the bricks have to be there to grow. Here we have an extremely piecemeal approach. Just to give one example, this month of March is actually very ominous. When not only the second wave begins, not only we think and that too comes from the same optimistic statement that you referred to in your opening remarks. The word eradication of COVID was actually used in the same in the same speech, roughly in the next sentence that you alluded to. So what happened in March was actually India exported more vaccines than it actually administered, and that's really remarkable, at least to a student of history, when we look back at it. The other inflection points have been shifting the eligibility from 50 plus with comorbidities to all of 45 plus, which is an additional 200 to 250 million doses. And then of course, 18 to 44, which only yesterday, one of the NTAGI members it's probably today, commented in one of the leading national television channels that this is a decision which probably was taken in haste, and these are his words, not mine. And therefore, the fact is that it has been an extremely piecemeal approach. We know all that. I'm sorry, I missed your second question.
And very quickly, how you see the whole thing spiraling in coming 6 or 8 months? Will the situation improve a bit?
We are talking of 6 to 8 weeks, really, not 6 to 8 months. We have to survive the first 6 to 8 weeks.
Step one by one, actually.
Yeah, which is really the challenge in rural India. And the visuals and the imagery are there for all to be seen. Now, there are 2 or 3 things that require mention. One, that testing capacity is extremely limited. To give you an example of a state like Assam, which has 32 or 33 districts, it has 13 labs, 13, of which 3 are in Guwahati. So the rest 30 districts roughly have 10 labs. Give an example of Chhattisgarh, there are 6 labs, of which 3 are in Raipur only. UP, Bihar, for example, each district has a lab, but it has a cap of 10,000 tests, and a district there means 1.2 to 1.5 million population.
So
and
clearly the infrastructure doesn't exist.
Area. That's the challenge, testing, and equally true for treating. And that really where the big challenge is, and that's what's going to determine the next 8 weeks. But because of this limits in testing, the numbers, to the extent to which it will be reflected in numbers, is something to really ponder about.
Okay, Dr. Sarkar, very quickly, we are running out of time. How you see the whole thing maybe spiraling in the coming months? I really don't wish to say year, coming months at least. How you see the whole thing spiraling?
Well, I think, if we have one sort of serious duty, the serious duty is to attend to the sick at this point of time. And this we really have to pick up pieces from the floor. The tremendously stressed, fractured, and almost pulverized healthcare system has got to still, put its chin up and attend to the sick people. And some of the crises, that we are bringing on ourselves is apart from all the virological and vaccine-related things. Say, for example, we are being miserly. There is no major city in India which is allocating or contributing more than 50-60% of beds to the whole corona problem. I still don't understand that what are big hospital, the ivory towers of medicine in India, what are they saving themselves for? When in your lifetime will you have an opportunity to come and address a health issue, if not today? And because of which, you see, this insecurity is leading to hoarding of oxygen. Stacking of oxygen means no cylinders, and so on and so forth. So I think the supply chain, the healthcare will have to sweat it out. We will have to fight out a problem till the last drop of sweat we have in ourselves. And for God's sake, the policymakers, like what Dr. Dasgupta said, you see, what is the core of the problem? He did not say. The core of the problem is malignant regulation and centralization of RT-PCR. The whole of West Bengal has 113 labs. What for? Today, if a private lab can look at your cancer tissue sample, how can a state of 10 crore people have 100 labs? And why on earth do you have this nefarious satisfaction from controlling everything? So you have to, if 65% of healthcare in India comes through the private sector, there is no point in being evasive about the issue. Cut out the crap and involve the credible public-private sector, the diagnostic, the therapeutic capacity, the critical care in a wholehearted kind of way. So it is, you see, not every blame lies with this, megalomaniac people in the high places. Our academia, there is a lot of congenital megalomania in our people who are in all these controlling academic positions, right? And they are a part of the problem today and not a part of the solution.
Yes, absolutely, right? Absolutely.
So we are back in the Soviet era when everything is at a shortage. Remdesivir is at a shortage, bed at a shortage, oxygen is at a shortage, and somewhere the combination of the governance, the bureaucracy, and the technocrats who are lucky enough to have the hand on the steering wheel are somehow, having making a meal of this controlled shortage situation in a country of 1.3 billion people. And yet we pretend to be a market economy.
I really don't know. It's a market economy or a mortal economy. But let very quickly know from other countries how the situation, how you see maybe months and years from now, how you see this time rolling out. Let's start with Pakistan. Dr. Afzal, we are running out of time. We are just having 5-7 minutes. Professor Afzal, very quickly, what do you feel is going to happen in Pakistan? How are you hopeful that you are going to control it to a reasonable extent? Dr. Afzal.
Right. Corona, we have to live with Corona. Corona would stay with us. It would become endemic, but it is not possible that it would be eradicated, as we have already talked about it in our meetings. That elimination, eradication, it could be a dream for us, but it is not the reality. And we have to think of these solutions. And as my president has correctly said, that we have to make different stakeholders like a public-private partnership to come in, academicians to give better solutions for it. Are those poor people who are still in denial, they should be given more education and knowledge about it. And we are also having the complications of Corona now. We have Corona at one side and we have post-COVID syndrome on the other side. Our children are coming with multi-system disorders. We have black fungus, the fungus that is starting from the nose, affecting the eyes and causing paralysis. So we are living not only with Corona, but also with the complications of Corona. And we have to live with it for a period of time. It is not possible to eradicate it or eliminate it even in the next year.
Okay, Bangladesh.
Yeah, so I will highlight on two major areas. One is infrastructural arrangement and another is community resilience building. So both is going on side by side. So our government has a country preparedness and response plan under that. So our infrastructure was, I guess you all know that we have shortage of human resource, hospital beds and everything. And when first wave came in, and we realized that very seriously. And then what we did, we our government had dedicated 50 hospitals for COVID and arranged 8,000 beds across the country for COVID, and is arranging a centralized oxygen supply for up to sub-district level, which was only available at divisional level. So these infrastructural things are happening, and most of the things are done, and like we are getting ourselves ready, but there are shortages, it will be there. But the thing is that one a good opportunity in Bangladesh, that we have many NGOs working with the community. So as everyone is saying that COVID will stay with us for long time, and we have to be very resilient. And Ms. Patrolekha also saying that we have to make our own way. So community should know that how to fight it. So what we have done,
that will be an advantage for Bangladesh.
So I would just mention that we have several more community-based models where we have done, we have worked with the community and built resilience in the community and found that it worked, and mostly around mask use, and mask use rate has increased in those areas. So government also has taken the approach to combine all the stakeholders and
to counter Corona. Great. Very quickly to Nepal.
I mean, we have realized that we're dealing with a very unpredictable virus. So therefore, I mean, unless and until maximum population gets vaccinated, this problem is not going to go away, or actually it will never go away completely. I agree with our Pakistan counterpart. So basically, for Nepal, we think we should be looking into vaccinating the population and also making sure our infrastructure is strong and resilient in the coming months. So that's about it.
Great. Professor Chatterjee, as a public health expert, as a more of a scientist, you see this variants, we are talking about variants very quickly. Is there any hope that we are perhaps seeing the kind of, not really the end of it, but towards the end of it, or are we going to expose to a more severe form of corona, as we pointed out, the fungal and all that? What do you think? You are muted, Professor Chatterjee. You are muted. You are muted. You are still muted, guys.
What has been discussed is actually absolutely right. But I just want to say that we have to convince our people surrounding us and to all the people that they have to wear masks, they have to maintain the social distance, and they have to take the precautions with sanitizers and others. So whether they're vaccinated or not, they have to do like that. And that this particular practice, they have to maintain for, I don't know, 1 year, 2 years or something. So it is a precautionary measures which are going to be much more important, and to convince our population that it is a must.
Professor Chatterjee, when this corona came up, many people say that this is another form of SARS. We all know that we had SARS before, various kinds of SARS, and SARS normally stay for 1 year. So if you look at when the corona started, many experts said it is going to stay for 1 year, around 1 year, that will go away. But this doesn't seem to be the case anymore. It's going to stay much longer than 1 year. That's for sure.
But that is actually the reason. The SARS-CoV-1 is actually its replicating pattern. It's much slower. And when something is slower, the rate of mutation is much slower. Whenever the replications are higher, mutation rates are higher, and you can get the new variants, which may be more infectious. And in that way, I cannot tell you, because more infectious viruses, if it originates. So precaution is much better than taking that. We are talking about the paucity of having the vaccines and everything. You know that I must salute Dr. Sarkar and all the community, the medicine and the health worker community, with so less amount of their armors. They are fighting so hard. But we can easily, what I am trying to do, I am trying to convince everyone as far as possible, please wear masks, please have the distance, please take the sanitizers.
Great. I think we kind of overshot by 15 to 20 minutes, and that's for good reason, because we had such a fascinating panel, and I think everybody spoke their heart out. And it's really a tsunami hitting not only world, but as Professor Dasgupta started in the beginning, the epicenter in South Asia, and the epicenter of the epicenter is in India. And we are having 4 lakh, nearly 4 lakh people, bigger than a Barbados, every day being affected by coronavirus. And you were talking about rural India. We have news from all over India that people are being thrown in the river. People are being buried at the riverbank. These are beyond the figure. So when we talk about the figure, Dr. Sarkar was talking about the figure and the kind of data. I would say that data is not right, put it in a diluted manner. That's for sure. We see for us. But 2 things come out. If the issue is that yes, we are now have to accept that corona is here to stay. We have to live with that, and it's, as I say, it's a long haul. It will stay for a while. The good thing is, perhaps this stress is making the governments understand the importance of health. Look at the amount of budget. The amount of budget in each South Asian country allots to health. It's minuscule in comparison to many other factors. Now they perhaps are realizing the importance of investing into health in a much wider and stronger manner. So with that, I think we are in the midst of a real crisis. The world is at a crisis, and the South Asia is also in the crisis. I am person. A couple of days before, I was looking at the news of USA President John Biden and others kind of taking the vaccine, taking the mask off and saying freedom. That may be a freedom within the room itself, but I'm really hopeful that with vaccines, despite all this kind of irregularities, all these issues, people are going to be vaccinated. It's a fact that already 8 crores Indians have been vaccinated. So we really do hope that for once our political leaders across South Asia, particularly in India, will see reason and will let the public health experts working. We'll let the public health workers public health experts taking the decision. For once, please ward off and allow the public health experts to take decisions. And you just implement it as they ask you to do. If that happens, if the vaccines are made available, with more vaccines, Sputnik and other vaccines coming into the picture, we really hope that by another 6 months' time, we'll have a better position in vaccination, and perhaps we'll be in a better position to counter of this dreaded disease, which we call corona. The tsunami will go away. We all hope that. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody.